join me in the pledge of allegiance would be great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chris. So we'll approach, is there anyone that would like the privilege of the floor? Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes from last month's meeting? It seemed like forever ago. Thank you for accommodating this schedule change. I was out of the country.
I guess I would like one privilege of the floor.
Sure.
Comment. At our last board meeting, Jared said that detached garages in the RLD would be on our agenda for ordinance. And if you could add that at some future meeting, that would be appreciated.
Okay. Good. I think we have a lot to do.
Yeah, I don't.
So we'll just put it on the agenda for next time.
Yeah.
So just a motion to approve the minutes. So moved. Second. All in favor?
Hi, Kim, your meeting date for in the minute was November 4th, which would have really been, should have been today's date, or whatever day we picked for October. So, yeah, so that's the only correction I have. Okay.
Oh, right, but yes, I saw that too, but the next meeting it actually will be November 4th. And on the agenda, it's November 7th, so we just got to get it to November 4th somehow,
Okay,
which is easy to
but the
do.
minutes should reflect that today's. meeting.
Today's, yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also did have, we don't have anything on the agenda and I don't know if we have something later. Are we sending something up to the town board for voting on the minimum house size? Because we have debated that to death.
Mhm.
It needs to go to the town board to make a vote on it and be done. And I think that would have to happen like today.
And I thought we did that, yeah, so let's
So that's gotta be
let's
just,
put that on the top of the.
I don't really care what level we put it at. We can figure it out on the town board.
No, I think if you look at the, I think if you look at the minute, there was 2 pages of notes
Yes.
on that's.
I don't want to talk about it in ordinance anymore.
So was there a consensus on that? So we can put it in resolution?
Well, we either came to no minimum or 850 square foot.
So there's this thing here where there's a straw poll that says 850.
Right,
Rudolph, yes, Sauer, yes, Fennel, yes, and I think John, you were a no on 850, if I'm correct, but you tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, I don't,
I think you were looking for 0.
Yeah,
I prefer no minimum.
Yeah,
Sarah, what were you had some comments on that one? Yeah.
I mean, I would prefer no minimum, but if we're gonna have a minimum, I feel like, can we keep it to a number that we already have? So like 720 has been our minimum for, manufactured homes when placed in a manufactured home park. It's a number that already we use. And then the questions I keep getting from people who want to build seem to be in that range. Ones we keep telling no, like that message I got the other day when I forwarded to you guys was just another reminder that all these people who keep asking still get a no. Unless they saw
unless
it,
you need a variance, right?
right, unless they saw it how.
Right.
But none of them have yet. I've told all of them you could request a variance and none.
does anybody have a problem with putting it forward as 720?
720 is what you're.
And the only basis I have for that number is it's in our code already for a minimum size. For a manufactured home.
Well, it keeps it consistent.
But we
Between-
still have to remove the section about the minimum manufactured home you could place outside of a manufactured home park would be a double wide. So it would help if we remove that requirement too, then it truly could be
720.
Mhm.
Is there any chance in God's green earth we could get that on Monday's agenda?
unless you hang here, yeah.
Well,
We could do that.
no, I mean, we could, but it still could get put in the agenda. The agenda won't get published until Wednesday.
Trying to stick to rules.
I know, you're trying, I know. But we also could we could throw that up and we could do a waiver of the rules and carry it. Just depends what it's gonna look, if we want that and the manufactured home section.
Murphy, we had identified all those pieces that would have to be changed, right? I think we had them in our other draft that we had that said 400.
Yeah,
Yeah, you did. And
Yep.
Yep. I think you just.
And that was
checked
updated to say 850, so it would just be a change in the numbers. And
Just
then
720.
Nadler would need to check it over and make sure.
Chris, could you check that over to get that ready for a Monday board meeting?
Sure thing.
Now, I'm gonna throw out a wrench. Do we wanna have two hand carried ones? Do we wanna have a 720 and a 0? Or do we wanna, if the discussion takes us down, do we wanna amend it to 0?
Yeah, we could very easily just do that.
It changed, there's two different changes. When it's 0, I think we had a different draft because it was a different, it hit some different parts of the code. And they did it differently rather than just changing the number, it eliminated sections.
Can we
I
get,
think we might have 3 board members that are at.
So maybe
Okay.
if we start at 720, if somewhere downstream, we need
Yeah.
to go to 0,
Okay.
maybe we could do that.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Wait, guys, we'd have to have a public hearing, right?
Yes, I believe
That would
so.
be what this board meeting would be doing.
So we'll hand carry a resolution,
setting a public hearing,
setting a public hearing. Okay,
and the public hearing would be for the last November meeting. Because we don't, the only one, because we only have one in November.
got it.
Murphy and I can.
November 25th.
Double check what we have and make sure, Chris Nadler, that you have both versions.
Perfect. Is there a reason we can't get it on the agenda? I mean, I understand there's a deadline, but I'd prefer to have, have the backup
I can
meeting.
get it on, we can get it on the agenda. I
Yeah,
mean,
let's-
hearing that you're talking about. We can get it, we can get that in so it shows up on the agenda, so we don't have to hand carry it.
I think that'd be better, because then we could have the two versions attached to the public hearing resolution.
Sounds good.
So can you get that today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you can get it today, we can get it on the agenda
Perfect.
So 720.
at 7:20. At 7:20, not two versions, just 7:20,
Oh, okay.
which is even easier.
Yeah.
say if you email it, we will have them draft, so.
So on to unsafe structures.
Thank you.
So we can't access. Alright, unsafe structures, sorry.
You sound great.
I know, we're just at the tail end of everything, so we're doing good. Everyone should have gotten it, I sent it out, Chris reviewed it. The only major things were grammatical errors, because I was writing a lot of this stuff, so Chris, thank you for being helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that worked out well. You didn't have to kill yourself getting it perfect.
Yeah,
And then I got to
Um,
review it while also correcting it. I think that worked out fine.
the only question that I had for Chris, and I apologize when I emailing it back to you last week, was the wrong
Okay.
one. The section that you wrote about the town board public hearing under 88-20.
Yeah, let me look. Yes.
So that is just how we normally have always had it in the section, but we don't need to have that. I guess it's a question of pros versus cons for you.
Um,
Did you send this to all board members?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Recently?
Forwarded it last week.
No, a while ago.
it went out from Kim Burkhardt
And
Yeah.
Kim
at the end of last week.
Yeah. Twice.
Which one are we on? That's what,
88.
88.
Yeah.
So that draft was the draft that Chris had revised. She said.
Yep.
I added this section? That doesn't sound like me.
No, you added a note to it that says on mine that you sent to me, it says, is this necessary?
Oh,
Underneath subsection C.
oh,
So
yeah,
that was the only, besides the grammatical errors, that was the only point between you and I that we haven't gotten to discuss yet.
yeah. You know, it's a policy decision. Does the town board want a public hearing before, you know, a property is torn down or not? That doesn't preclude, I mean, an emergency tearing down necessarily.
I think so, yes, because every time I think of these things, I think of Lincoln Hill and.
I think yes as well, unless it's an emergency situation.
Yes.
Okay, then I say leave it.
Okay. There any other questions on it at all?
Final draft, anyway.
I said, I'll fix all the grammatical errors. Last week was not a fun week for me. And then we discussed before, the only other change is the addition of vacant building registry and stuff like that, which is important.
And this will be for the November meeting, right? Public hearing, Chris, for this as well?
Yes,
Yeah. So we should have this ready to go for November.
Yeah, this would be to set a public hearing.
Right, the second hearing, right. Any other comments on unsafe? Great. Mike, you're on the docket today, floodplain ordinance.
Yep, so.
You wrote all this.
I
know, you were busy
We sent you to a conference, and you came back, you said, I need
Your
to do
fault.
75 things.
So good news. With a pill to swallow. We did get comments back from DEC and FEMA. I have not sent them to Chris because again, last week, I apologize, I was here one day. The majority of the comments are more or less replacements of definitions and stuff that New York State said, hey, we want to make this super complicated, so we're gonna use this definition as DEC tends to do. The larger the conversation that we need to have on this one before we move forward is in the eyes of New York State, DEC, as well as Department of State, DOS, they see that the section on critical facilities being placed outside of the 100-year floodplain would require approval from New York State to have in our ordinance. That's sought after Code Council, which is out in Albany, and it's required anytime that we exceed or become more restrictive than the Uniform Code. I thought that we could circumvent this, and I was honestly shocked when DEC came back with these comments, and the DOS contacted me and said, yeah, no, we concur. Seeing as how it's floodplain, you know, yes, there is a section within the building code, but it says revert back to your local ordinances. So let's see where it got a little confused. We can either remove the section on critical facilities and just keep it the same as we have since we've been a part of the NFIP, which is a 2 feet of freeboard. And they can be within a floodplain. Or we can go through the Code Council process and try to become more restrictive.
Which makes the most sense.
Critical facility is
Like the RG&E.
any
Substation,
utility
utility
infrastructure,
substation.
any medical facility which is emergency or has surgical center operations, fire, police, municipal operations centers, stuff like that. So the goal was, and what I've been
Is
seeing,
it town facilities?
if they're emergency,
If they're, so like Ononda, the cabins would not be part of it.
correct.
Okay.
Yep, but town hall, your emergency operations center would be. Even town highway would be considered an emergency center.
Okay.
So it's not a huge ask of Code Council. I'm always hesitant when it comes to stuff like this. The perfect example is Farmington proposed a law which was identical to Victor's sprinkler law that they got passed about 4 or 5 years ago now. Farmington went before the Codes Council, an identical law, and Farmington got denied, Victor got approved. So it's very subjective. It's very, okay, you present the evidence on why you need this or why you require this to be code.
So how often do you think that would come into play? If we went with a more restrictive code,
It won't come into play often, but when it does, it's a pretty,
it's important.
yeah, I mean, the biggest example would be at County Road 10 at 46. The RG&E substation. They put in 1 foot of fill to be outside of the floodplain. So now they're only 6 inches above the floodplain. If we get a flood in that area, just like we did on July 9th, they're getting water in that substation.
Right.
So they've been doing stuff to try and alleviate that, but that's where I see it more. Is in our infrastructure and our utilities.
So it sounds like it's something we should at least attempt.
We could, the only reason why I want to really bring it here first and have, you know, maybe a few days of thought on it is. It will require assistance from Chris as far as preparation of documents. It will require extensive staff time to go through and file for the request, to go out to Albany, lead the case before code council. So it's not as simple as just submittal. It is a rare occurrence. There's only been 20 of them since 2022.
20 that have been approved
20 that have been
or
submitted.
submitted.
Nobody were approved. I'd have to go through each one.
So sure, are you thinking, is it worth the effort?
Is it worth-
If it's 0 or 1, then maybe we don't wanna
Yep,
commit funds to that.
Exactly.
But I mean, it makes sense what he's saying, though, that's the only thing, I mean, but maybe if you could find out what the. I know that might be some chore, but if it's
Yeah.
pie in the sky, why waste our money?
And the worst part is that you can only get approval after you pass the local law. So you can't go through and get approval first. You have to pass the local law. Within 30 days, you make application to the Secretary of State. Then it goes through the process and it could be 6 months after. And then you're appealing and creating a new law and everything else. So it's a difficult process.
Makes the process more confusing.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
We could also try to circumvent this by encouraging our local state representatives to change the state law. It sounds like a state law that should be changed. So,
It's state building code.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think we should have critical facilities under your.
100%.
Like, I think it's an excellent, I mean. It probably would be more difficult for communities that are close to the ocean, I would imagine, but
Well, you can make.
Mike,
Yeah.
Mike, let me ask you this.
Yep.
Are we certain that it is in conflict with state building code? I understand they said it is or might be, but are we
So-
certain that it actually is?
State building code does not directly call out critical facilities, but it does call out non-residential. So in the eyes of DOS, when I talked to their code council rep, he said, well, it's covered underneath this. If you didn't have a critical facility section, you would require it to be underneath non-residential. I said, yes, but ours is a local zoning and local zoning has always been underneath AHJ. And more exclusively floodplain ordinance. We deal with it at a locality level. We need to have more restrictive standards. He said, I'm not saying you wouldn't get it, but it is more restrictive than the uniform code.
And this is.
I don't look at it that way, but he does, and I do agree with him after back and forth. So
Well, so we don't have anything in writing from them, it's just a conversation?
I can get something in writing easily, yeah.
Cause my thought is, you know, I'm not suggesting we violate the law, but if we have an interpretation that differs from some guy at the Department of State, that's different than breaking the law.
Yeah,
We can enact, you know, if we have good reason to believe that we're acting within the bounds of the law, if we don't agree with his interpretation, we can go ahead and adopt it the way we want it. And it's then if the Department of State feels it's necessary, they can challenge that. I'm not suggesting that's the only course of action here. I'm just saying that's something we can consider. You
yeah,
don't
and
necessarily have to ask for permission because, you know, one guy during a conversation suggested that we would have to.
So if we pass this ordinance, who would challenge it? The state would come to us and say, your ordinances doesn't fall into this
no, I
code, or
mean,
would?
the way that I would that I foresee it is RG&E comes in and they want to put a new substation. And
Then they'll check.
They'll challenge it, then they go to New York State and it would, if found to be more restrictive and us not get the proper approval, they would have a successful change.
Why would they wanna put a critical structure in?
But they just
Well,
did, Terry, that's,
yeah,
that's
well,
what concerns me.
When was that?
That was probably,
I think that was pre,
That was in the
I
'80s.
think, I don't think that was the thing that, I
I don't
think it
think-
was pre this, it's more restrictive now.
Yeah, I would think they'd take a,
So,
Well,
what's the downside to us approving to making a more restrictive ordinance? If we get challenged in court, then we'd have to defend it, right?
I mean, my only concern, and I totally agree, they should only be in these out of the floodplain. Is we just had an LDC meeting about how difficult it is to get infrastructure here and to get there to be expansion on the grid. I don't wanna scare off any grid expansion ever in my community because it's already a problem.
The only thing is though, you don't want it to be susceptible to
100%
problems as
agree.
well, right? That, I
But-
mean,
People, you know, RGD seems to be kind of looking for excuses to not spend money to update anything right now. But
how much property they own on that County Road 10 spot? They don't know to expand anything. So it would be a new location anyway if they were gonna put.
yeah, and it's, I mean, we've got floodplains all throughout, so it's difficult to say.
So it could be something like North Road,
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
a wide open, wide open,
Yep.
just spot that's been sitting for a while, so we do have a handful where they could attack, they could focus on.
Yeah.
Cause it would be
Which-
cheap,
As Adeline says, we kind of want,
I know,
we want infrastructure.
yeah.
So, I mean, so where are we on this? You would
I
like
can
to
do
see it
more
be more
research.
restricted.
I would love to, in the sense of, I think it's just personally the dumbest thing in the
it
world.
is.
To say you can have a police station, fire station, EMS, hospital. I mean, Tampa Bay General is a perfect example. Tampa Bay General is 7 feet above sea level. They get 10 foot of storm surge, they're gone. That's why they've been all over the news with a $10 million seawall. Because, we built a hospital right near the water, because it looks cool. Well, now you have problems like this, so we're trying to kind of get ahead of this. Luckily, we don't have problems like that,
Only
but
every 500 years.
only every 500
Well,
years.
500 years.
But I do think the flooding in July did show there are some areas that, yeah, I mean, 46 was flooded over top of the road. If we lost power, there was no getting it on until that water stopped. That's why we have certain items in this new law where, you know, residential subdivisions need at least one road above the floodplain and everything else, so that there's at least backup plans. You know, we're not making it difficult.
So your recommendation to the committee would be to be more restrictive.
Yeah, we put it in, we do it. If in the future someone comes in and challenge it, they challenge it.
That's what I'm kind of thinking.
You might be able to scare them away if
Right.
you have it in
But
there.
then you have Adeline saying, well, we don't want to scare off, but I don't know that we will.
I hope,
don't
I
think
mean,
that-
I completely agree with you, don't get me wrong, I'm just saying, you know, the last thing that I wanna do.
I
is
hear
that-
both sides of the argument, but I think we want to make sure that our facilities are safe as well.
Or maybe common sense would prevail and they would look and say, you know what, it makes sense to elevate the area by 3 feet. We're like, listen, you probably could force it through, but if you follow this, you will be protected. Because I'm sure they don't wanna have to put in something that's only gonna get washed out potentially.
Maybe
Well,
on
you
the
would want to
development page, we should
damage
start with like a map that shows like
Good spots.
flood, you know, like if there's a 25-year flood, just big map, this is where it is. No, but just like, as soon as you go to the page, like the first thing you see, FYI.
And maybe the other side of this is RG&E and utilities are not looking to build stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So we would love that. So hopefully.
That's what we heard last Thursday
Right,
morning.
exactly.
Exactly.
So I mean, I don't know that it would be discouraging or encouraging. It's, I think what we're good with is I think what we need to go with.
So
Form-based.
I have two suggestions here. Well, I guess one is a comment and one is a suggestion. The comment is, I don't think it will, for the most part, discourage utility infrastructure installation. I think it will guide utility infrastructure installation if, you know, engineers are the ones who do it, not the policymakers. They say, oh, they've got a law in the books that says they can't do it here. Let me find another place for it. Unless there's no other place for it, then in a high-risk area. And then the utility has to decide, is it worth it to fight about this? For the most part, even if they're, if they're legally able to fight about something, they're gonna opt to not do that and move their critical infrastructure to a place that doesn't violate our code. So I don't think it will discourage anybody, but I think it's a good question and there's no guarantees. From a what do we do next standpoint, I think the thing to do is figure out if it is actually in violation of state building code. If it is, in my opinion and Mike's opinion, then I think we have a different conversation. If it's arguable or questionable or definitely not, then I think we can proceed and enact it into code as written. But I think that would be the first step, is to decide whether we think it is in violation of state code or not. Does that make sense?
It does, but we would have to enact that law for it to go any further anyway, right? Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So why wouldn't we proceed with that?
Cause I think the biggest thing with proceeding is the cost to the town. And it's not gonna be just my time. It's gonna be Chris's time, my time, Kyle's time to go out there. It's gathering research of how often this happens and all that.
But until someone
But
challenges
yeah.
our ordinance, we've passed a law
I mean,
that
if-
needs to be
No,
challenged.
Yeah, you're
Well,
not suggesting
no.
going ahead
No.
with that other.
No, I think-
Oh, no, I'm saying-
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Ordinance, right, and then let someone challenge.
Yeah.
No.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Because that'd be putting me on the line. Cause if I can't knowingly go through and follow something that's more restrictive without the proper approval. So what Chris is saying is
I
give
see
us,
what you're saying.
give us a month to come back and say this could 100% concrete is more restrictive. Or, hey, Mike and Chris, we've come back and now we're going through and saying, we really don't agree with New York State. We're gonna go ahead and do it because we have this proof that shows that we don't agree with it. They're not 100% correct, vice versa.
Okay,
Whereas if we come
Exactly.
back and we're like, oh no, yeah, okay. Yeah, I
So-
see where they're coming from.
so we need something in writing from the guy you spoke to then, and maybe if we could find out what the success ratio is when you appeal that, that would give us some guidance to go forward.
Mhm.
Good.
Can you ask the question in another way, and that is how many times of those 20 some odd times that you cited were in this particular area? Is what you talked
Floodplains
about, Victor, and well, that wasn't
Oh,
floodplain.
in this area.
Yeah.
Only,
I mean, in the floodplain question, not
oh, I got you.
not geographic
Yeah.
area, but.
Yeah, none.
you know,
I'll be brutally honest with you, we're one of 5 municipalities in New York State that would not have the same floodplain ordinance. So when DEC came out with NFIP in 1970 something, they went around with,
The same
said, this is the ordinance, you're the code officer, and Terry,
Past that.
sign that, Tom Ward passed this, congratulations, you're good. That's how they got up to 90 some odd % of coverage in New York State. No one's ever gone through and been like, they just keep doing the same thing. Problem is that the same thing
Doesn't work.
clearly isn't working.
It's the path of least resistance for that.
It is,
right?
yeah, I mean, the state's way is up, build higher, okay, but we see being a lakeside community, you build higher, what happens? Now you have centralized flow between houses, which creates more problems and all this other stuff. Or you have areas like Happiness House, which would be considered a critical facility. And then you have myself and Doug Finch at the time pulling people out when we waste high water.
Yeah.
You know, like, they didn't have the foresight to go through and say, okay, these are gonna be problems in the future. They just look at buildings and making the buildings safe, which is fine.
This is through DEC. I might want to touch base with, we have a planning board member who's a retired DEC engineer too. So-
I've got everyone up in Albany that's already looked at this. So I've got two people I'm working with that oversee the whole department for DEC for floodplain. And they know what they're doing. They're really, I've met them personally. They're great people. They commended everything that we put into this. They think it's great. They think it's a really good idea.
I hear, however.
It's just that one DOS side of things where they're like, well, and then the only other comment they had was our compensable storage. So if you bring infill in the draft that was sent out, it was you needed to provide 150%. They said, you're just opening yourself up to a legal battle. You're really not gonna gain anything, just drop it to 100. And then it's even, you have to create storage to offset what you brought in. Instead of making the situation better, you're at least not making it worse.
So let me ask you
Yeah.
a question. You bring up a good example, Happiness House. So you're saying now, if we have someone that wants to build in that floodplain, they could do it,
Yes,
but they gotta be 2 foot above the floodplain. And what you're saying is you want to create an ordinance that tells the private individual they cannot build there, even if it's 2 foot above the floodplain?
no.
What do you
So
want to
they
know?
have, option 1 is to not build in within the SFHA. Option 2 is that if you cannot find anything else, we prove. There's a list of, I think it's 4 factors that you can go through. You say, okay, financially, we cannot build anywhere else. Infrastructure wise, can't build anywhere else. And you can prove that you can build a reasonably safe structure, then you can. One of the things is you build 3 feet above the 500-year floodplain. So instead of 2 feet above the 100-year floodplain and the 1% SFHA, you're building 3 feet above the 500-year.
And this is just.
This is only for a
Only for
critical facilities such as Happiness House.
Fire.
And it's not all of Happiness House. It's that
Low.
one low building where they are, it's a transition home. And so the true definition of critical facilities is 3 factors. It's structures containing, producing, or using highly volatile, flammable, toxic, water reactive materials, or hospitals, nursing homes, and housing likely to contain occupants who may not be sufficiently mobile on their own to avoid death or injury during a flood. Police, fire stations, etc., and then public and private utility facilities. And that's the definition that FEMA, myself, and DEC all agreed on. So it doesn't just cover hospitals and everything else. It covers those areas where they are vulnerable. So if they can't build somewhere else, we're at least gonna have you build at a level that is sufficient enough to cover us in, I hate to say it, it's like a 2,000-year storm when you really do the measurements.
But we just had one.
Yeah.
At
No.
Happiness House.
So we got another 2,000 years.
That was
600 years.
that was really only a 100-year storm.
Yeah.
I don't know why
But it's still flooded.
it flooded.
Right,
yeah.
so I mean, we wanna not have that happen.
And Happiness House is a bad example in the sense of it wasn't built to floodplain standards. If it was, we probably wouldn't have seen
So
flooding.
if it were 2 feet higher than it was, it would have been okay.
Correct. It would have been right at the bottom of the sill,
Yeah,
I don't think it
but
is.
we wouldn't have seen the leaks.
right.
So. Everything else in the ordinance is the same. They had no comments. They liked the idea of the flood compliance certificate. They think that that's actually a really great idea to get caught up on paperwork, as well as giving information to new home buyers and residents in the community. And then just one last plug. As you guys probably saw, we did get the 90-day appeal period started for the new flood maps. I don't know who went through and told other communities to have them contact me, but I've been getting calls from about every single person.
You told other communities?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got calls from town of Seneca, town of Geneva. I've been getting calls from the city of Canandaigua.
Was that one of your former friends in Geneva or something?
Probably.
Slid that in?
Yeah. So a lot of people have a lot of questions. We're kind of getting a massive influx of people calling us, but it's a good thing. I mean, we're not gonna turn people away if they're from other communities, but we will talk to their code enforcement officer and say, hey, here's where you can get the information.
Is it just from this county?
Yeah, it's just our county that's affected. So, but a lot of people in the community are pretty good about it. And asking a lot of good questions. So
So the follow-up is a written, some kind of written opinion on that, and then, I don't know if it's success on appeal is really gonna be applicable, if there's really no other floodplain issues that have been appealed. But maybe it's good to find out the success ratio
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, and I can get that for you.
Mike, the other thing is maybe we talk about how to present, how to ask the question.
Yeah,
My experience with these guys is that they don't reverse easily. So maybe if we rephrase the question, they can see the error of their ways or at least be persuaded.
I got
So
you.
if you wanna chat about that for a few
Yeah,
minutes.
I gotta email you the whole comment list, cause.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
So we did send this out, just so everyone knows now, to FEMA, DEC, the watershed, soil and water, county planning. A few different other municipalities, and so we've gotten a lot of comments on it, so it's. Give me a week to get everything formalized, and then I'll get a brand new draft sent out to everyone, with comments attached, so.
Lots bisected by right of way.
We wanna roll Kim over here to be part of the group,
Who?
Kim Burkert, because it's an ECB suggestion, so.
I don't think anything's drafted yet.
Okay,
What's the intent?
The intent is to fix a gap in code where people could have a lot of property upland. They've got like a road that bisects the property, and they build everything on the lakeside, which is not what's intended.
From the lot coverage.
And percentage of coverage.
right.
So
maybe-
would the solution there be adding a line to 220-9 or the RLD section that says you gotta use the same portion of the lot to determine lot coverage for those purposes? Instead of saying you can't have a lot bisected by a right of way, just clarify how to calculate lot coverage in the RLD.
He had proposed something that Quorum had used. To address that.
I didn't see that.
I can send you that.
Was that sent out?
It was sent out a while ago, yeah.
Oh, my apologies. I just looked at the most recent stuff to prepare it this morning.
Yeah, it wasn't in there.
Oh, sorry about that.
So maybe for next month, we could get something together for that. Chris, you think that would work for you as well? Chris, you think that's something we could prepare for next month's ordinance?
Absolutely.
Fire
Uh,
code. Fire alarm, sorry. Yes, Chris?
No, sorry, I was just making a note.
Alright, back to me.
Oh, look.
Yay. So the fire alarm code, Chris reviewed it, again, grammatical errors, because. After writing all of these, my eyes just kind of went cross-eyed. There's a few sections we're replacing with Victor's. That's already been done, I just gotta get it out to everyone. And then it should be pretty simple and straightforward, you know, it's. Something that's probably should have been on the books for a long time now, but it wasn't, and the fire departments are asking for it, so. Each fire department that covers town has seen this, city and Cheshire. Both fire chiefs like it, all the captains like it. No questions, no issues, and it's more or less just trying to create a process for them that's not calling myself in. So,
How do we collect the fine?
just like we do normally right now,
So
it's
we
a
are-
court process. Yeah, it's not
I
me
mean,
walking around
people
with,
pay attention at $500 a false alarm.
Yeah. so,
After 2.
After 2.
You
Yep.
get 2 free. Victor, I don't think gets any free.
Now,
Maybe it gets
they
1
get-
free.
They get the first one, and then the second one, if it's like cooking or something else, it's
Yeah,
so. And that's a big difference from us and other communities. Chief Magnera from City Fire was worried about calling it false alarms or calling it avoidable alarms because of the stigma. If you're cooking and your smoke detector goes off, I guess there were issues with a past chief of City Fire that was writing those up as avoidable alarms or false alarms and then issuing fines. So to make it very clear that we're not doing that, we're calling it avoidable. Because if you're cooking and you set off your smoke detector, well, that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So.
You saw the definition of false alarm in there. Do you want that still?
Yep.
Oh, is there something else we have to do to this?
Just grammatical errors that I gotta fix.
But the flow and everything.
Yep,
So we're looking for set up a.
yep,
It would be a December public hearing.
yep, yeah, November to set up public hearings.
December public hearing for that right now, we can't.
No, we're not gonna keep sliding them in. We'll get it at a December public hearing. So we'll set the public hearing at the November meeting.
Then get it in December.
Yeah, same as the other one, safe structures.
Is there any pushback on this?
No, like I said, this one's a pretty, every other municipality has one. For instance, there was, and I'll never say names or anything in these meetings, but there was a business on 332 in our municipality. Fire alarm went off over 40 times in a 1 week period. And it got to the point where the staff just took the alarm right out of service. And it wasn't just fire, that was 40 times that it rang into dispatch, so that was fire and PD. And it just killed everyone's kind of workflow. And then I showed up and the alarm was still out of service. And so finally, we just issued appearance tickets and said, fine, we're just on the report, and it got fixed, so. As hard as it is, that's usually what it takes to get some. So this way we've got something quicker and easier than just going to court on a faulty alarm.
So if fire department gets called out on a false alarm, will they get it, will that homeowner or business owner get a notification like, yes, this was one, you have one more, and after that, here's what's going to happen?
Yep, yeah, and that's under 77-6 notice to owners.
Okay.
So if our company gets a call, you get notice that a call has been made. You're tracking the occurrences,
So the fire department will go through and track them for me.
they'll track, okay.
Yeah, and that's part of the process that we're trying to work out. So I get notified anytime City Fire or Cheshire has an incident within their jurisdiction. But what we're going through is we're gonna need call records or call sheets from this dispatch center. So we're creating a process that's just gonna be a little bit more sophisticated than I got a text message.
And so whoever answers the call will determine if it's an avoidable alarm.
Yep.
That-
And that'll be usually the fire chief or
Right.
captain that's on scene. And it's, I mean, I dealt with this when I was in Victor. It wasn't like, oh, it's your first time, there's your first warning. It was usually, they say at Victor schools, when 5 times in 1 week, we were going, we're like, okay, now we're kind of upset. You know, it's really not the first one. The first one that got reported was usually the 5th. So it takes a lot to get someone upset.
my understanding also is that the police chief or police captain, whoever's filling out the after action report, I think it's on the after action report. They've already been making these decisions, whether it's an avoidable alarm or not, after every incident.
Yeah, correct. It's
And
one of the
it's
difference.
pretty standardized. It's not discretionary. It's, okay, this falls within the realm of avoidable, this doesn't.
So this is primarily businesses, nonprofits, commercials. It's not homeowners that have,
No.
so.
But if it does get to that point, then yes,
Yeah,
it's,
because this is when an alarm's ringing through. It's not
Correct.
like your personal smoke alarm that you've got to call 911 to acquire service.
yeah, this is, you know, your smoke head's been damaged and it's constantly going off, or there's an issue with your sprinkler system and it's constantly going off. And it takes resources away. It
It's
really
making
does.
sure that those businesses are recognizing that these are emergent situations that they need to fix immediately, not just let sit there because they don't feel like paying.
Yeah, because if you call for an emergent
Yeah.
repair, it's usually twice the rate,
Mhm.
and they don't wanna do that, so.
And it has nothing to do with if you have a alarm system in your house that somebody triggers. No,
No, it was, cause at that point, that's not an avoidable alarm, that's a false alarm.
Right.
You know, and that's.
Well, it's also, this is only for alarm systems that ring
Which
through
that
to the
would-
police department, so
Anything
There-
interior of the house.
Fire.
there are no residential.
Any monitored system.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that case, again, if it goes off, someone's cooking, that's a false alarm, it's not.
No, I mean, someone enters the house and the alarm goes off, and you don't get the code in.
Oh, no, that
It's
doesn't,
totally not part of that
yeah,
at
we
all.
don't cover PD,
Okay,
we
good,
only
good.
cover
Then we're
fire
gonna get cited.
because of
There's a
that.
lot of those, there's a lot of.
It's a lot of those.
I'm like, that happens
I don't
here.
want Srincion to have to figure some reporting system.
$500 a wrap
So-
for that.
Yeah.
Well,
Jeez, I think we might get written up for that here every once in a while.
That's what I'm saying.
Wait a minute. Yes, we would.
All the time.
Well, this good, looks pretty good. Any other comments? So public hearing on this,
Look at this,
Set it in November.
November for December.
yes.
our efficient ordinance committee meeting, this is great.
So form-based code,
Oh, there goes you.
well, what I'd like to do is kind of hold on that. I spoke to Randy Farnsworth just because he's one of the interested parties. I mean, it seems to me like part of the form-based code issues, Sarah, are the car dealers, right? So they say they have to sell cars a certain way. We're kind of going back and forth on that.
I don't know if it's really that it's the car dealers. Which I think. the
Will you
bigger
say, Sarah,
issue
you speak
is-
up?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the car dealers themselves that's causing the issue. I think it's the changes proposed to an existing development. There are thresholds that were set up in the form-based code that when they hit a threshold, they then have to come into compliance with all of the requirements of the form-based code for whatever it is that they're changing. And so I think the discussion maybe could be, do those thresholds need to be relooked at? The other question with what specifically the car dealerships tend to deal with because they have so much parking lot is, you know, parking lots shouldn't be farther forward than the front of the building. And
Which,
because the old code had the buildings back so far, most of the parking lots were in front, so immediately changes to that pushes them up against the requirements of the code. Chris?
I was just gonna say, it's, to support what you just said. We know it's not car dealerships as a general proposition, because you just got an application for a car dealership that's primarily in compliance with form-based code,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much makes it.
Which is interesting, I think, but it's the existing car dealerships and
Right, 'cause
other,
that's a new development on a vacant parcel, so they're not really struggling to meet
Right,
the form-based code, they're just, where do we
Yeah.
put our parking lot? Okay,
But-
we'll put it here.
But the existing
It's
ones
the
are the,
existing,
right.
and it seems to be a struggle. I mean, we've also had conversations about specific facade requirements like transparency. Which that doesn't really matter whether it's existing or brand new, and we seem to get complaints about that regardless.
Yeah, I think the transparency thing, we definitely.
And then Mike, we've gotten complaints about the materials, right, lately?
exterior materials.
Which again, that doesn't really matter whether it's, I think it matters more for the existing when they're changing. Than like to Chris's point, the new car dealership. Never mentioned material.
yeah, they don't care. They just put whatever they're required to on their brand new building, but
They didn't actually mention anything about transparency. That's where the car dealerships actually have zero
Yeah.
complaints. from
Yeah,
my-
they're good with that.
Because they're already more than needing it. Because it's good for business.
Right.
The transparency seems to be showing up with the multifamily buildings and things
Which-
like that.
Yeah, which we've had only one go through, and that was Edgemere. Unfortunately, they didn't build, but they sought and received a variance. Now, it wasn't a complete variance from the full requirement. They just asked for a reduced amount of transparency. Still, I think they still propose more than what they would have had to in the other sections, but
Wasn't that in the wrong area?
what?
That was in 332.
They were in the mixed use area, cause they were over on that vacant parcel on Parkside where now Trolley Station wants to go. I think they, they needed 40% and they asked for 30 instead or something like that.
I think we should definitely reduce the transparency. I think that's come up again and again. And it is definitely something that when we created form-based code, they basically showed us images. And we picked the images that looked like what we wanted, and I think we're finding in practice that it's too high. So for all sections, so I think we should definitely reduce the transparency requirement, so.
Weren't there some other issues though, like with signage and small things that you guys were gonna work on to, propose a change? So business could be identified rather than.
Yeah,
On a central.
I think it's worthwhile for those little ones to include it in one big update. Than just,
Your
Piecemeal.
yeah. I'd rather see it as one comprehensive.
When will we see
Six
that?
public hearings.
So how do we accomplish
When
that?
are we gonna see that?
Once we figure out the transparency.
So how do we accomplish those rolling up all those little ones? I mean, I think transparency is certainly one, and threshold for development is certainly something that we need to really.
Kind of agreed
Look
on
at,
that
yeah.
too, so.
Are there others that,
I guess I'd have to ask the question. Do we think we know better than the developer of what they can do to develop the remaining 20% of the acreage on 332?
I would say no to that. I don't think we do.
Right, but by the form-based code, we're telling them that we do.
Who are involved in development.
And I think, I hate to say it like this, but I think that somebody sold the town on form-based code for an application that really shouldn't be used for. If you have acreage, like we'll use the Cook Krista development, although that's kind of like really not applicable to the form-based code. But if you had a large acreage like that and you wanted all the community, whether it be residential or commercial, to look similar, then I would say that is an area where you would use form-based code. But when you have an existing 332 corridor that is developed in all the ways that it is, I think we should let the developers decide what the best solution for the land is that they want to use to sell whatever that it is that they're going to sell. Whether the parking needs to be in the front or the parking needs to be in the back. Now, the one building that we built under form-based code, and I don't know if this is a fair example, but they're struggling a little bit, and the building, in my opinion, kind of looks out of place there. And so that's kind of my comment. I
just
just,
unique looking structure for certain.
that's for certain.
And it's a goofy lot too.
It is. a goofy lot,
It was a-
right.
But you've only got, I mean, the reality is, we only have probably a half a dozen lots left on Route 332. And my thought process is, I don't think we should revert to town form-based code to tell any developer that wants to come in there and develop those lots what they need to do, because the theme or the design, the lack thereof, is all the way up and down 332. And I think if we take 4 or 5 or 6 lots that are left to build and we make them different than all of the rest of 332, they're gonna look out of place.
I think there's more than that. I mean, when we were establishing what this area covered, I don't, Sarah, maybe you remember, but I seem to remember somebody was saying it's more than 6 or 7 Eastview malls of property that was able to be developed in this form-based code area. You remember them
There
quoting
was an
that?
image and yeah.
Yeah.
As an.
It was,
I think
it was
roughly
actually,
the same.
we
area.
feel like it's not much, but it's a lot. Like, I mean, just think, for example, of, you know, Randy's property, the collision property. That's a huge property. I mean, it doesn't seem like it is, but that's a huge property that a lot could be done on in that area. And you know, I agree. I don't want to be stepping on toes, and I want there to be freedom of choices for these businesses, what they want to build. But I think it's important in an area that have encouraging businesses that people are coming to, that we start to put some sort of training wheels so that we can start carving things to be in a more accessible format for people that are walking, and this whole more of a community feel than what it is now, which is essentially strip malls and car dealerships. So while we can't, you know, force them to go one way or another, I think we need to make steps so that they are doing things. Like, I'm really encouraged to hear what you just said, Sarah, that there is a car dealership building on a new spot. I don't care that it's a car dealership, but the fact that it's gonna now have paths through the parking lot and parking lots more to the back, I mean, that's really, I think that's a very positive thing for the community. And I think the form-based code can be positive as long as we can adjust it in a way that makes it not overly restrictive.
But I think the problem is, as I see it, I think John was saying it as well, we're gonna do that with 4 or 5 places. And the other places are gonna look, I mean, you're never changing Garber Cadillac, you know, that's a brand new building. It's always gonna be there in our lifetime.
The thing that's
So
gonna
how
stand
many
out
more?
is the new ones,
The
the
new
new
ones that
form-based
are-
code are gonna be different.
Right,
From what's
right, and that's kind of what
That's kind of.
that's kind of what, I mean.
But in a positive way.
But-
You know, why is
I
that?
don't
I don't
think it's
That's
positive. I don't
positive.
know that it's
We don't know if it's
positive.
positive. The
That's very
developer,
subjective.
the developer of the parcel is the one that ultimately knows whether it's positive or negative. If we tell them that they have to build it a particular way, and that doesn't satisfy their sales objective or their commercial objective, then that's not positive. And if we're restricting development of those lots that have been sitting there for quite some time now, because people don't want to build per the form-based code, that's not a positive. We want to attract business here. And we had 3 developers come and sit before the LDC telling us the form-based code is too restrictive.
And we're talking about modifying it. We're talking about reducing the transparency.
I would
and
say-
we're talking about,
Throw it away and start all over again.
I mean, I know that, so I personally, I don't think the 332 corridor, I think looking at form-based code, that was an idealistic way to try to look at something that somebody said they didn't like because of the looks. You're never gonna fix that. We're
Right.
gonna have all the issues, you know, and there's, I think Krista, I think the Cook property has shown us that it does create challenges for others coming in there. They are working in there, but that's further back. I mean, do we scrap the corridor of 332 because of the amount of pre-existing businesses there and the fact that it is handcuffing them, those who want to expand. I spoke to the marketing regional director for West Shore with concerns about coming here and expanding and the challenges that it faced. And yeah, it's one or two variances, but enough of those. And they might say, well, we're not going to expand in Canandaigua, we're going to go somewhere else, and thank you very much. Maybe keeping it in the back area in the offshoots of 332 could be a viable option. I don't think it fits keeping it in the direct 332 corridor, just because of the challenges that it creates.
You're saying form-based code. doesn't
Form-based
fit that.
code. I just think we're gonna have a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
And we're
But to Adeline's point, I would love to see some of that stuff stay in place, like walkways, trees,
Oh,
those kind of things.
and those things we can,
Pardon me?
those things I
Right,
think,
right.
those things
I
we
agree.
can.
I don't think anybody's
I-
gonna, so I'm certainly not pushing back on that.
Excuse me. I'm gonna leave you guys to debate and deliberate. I think
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
you're on the right track in terms of deliberation of it. So
All right, good talk.
Thank you.
call if you need anything. Bye.
Chris is saying, I don't want any part of this.
No, you guys are rambling.
The opposite, I'm not in a hurry.
That didn't take them long. I've never, I like, there's some tenets of the, form-based code that I like. I've never been a huge fan from the very beginning. I've had
Well,
my
you know,
doubts.
it really,
I
if you have a blank.
Yes,
You know, blank
100 acres
canvas.
Empty, you know,
Yes.
that's where it would be applicable. You're gonna wind up with this
hodgepodge.
stuff that meets form-based code and 80% of it doesn't, so
Why is that
how
bad?
effective has it been? It's not gonna be effective.
Well,
Why
I
why is
think
it
it's
bad if
restrictive.
there's some really well-designed, attractive, useful
The buildings
properties
out there are
that are
well-designed,
mixed in
attractive too.
with
Some people.
car dealerships with, you know, a lot and pushback things that you can't see and that are not good for walkers and in a it's gonna be a community area. If and or when this Cook property project goes in there, you're gonna have 600 plus families living,
Yeah.
walking around the corner. And as I said, you know, before, I had some work done on my car last year at Garber, whatever it's called now. And I said, okay, I want to start looking at a new car across the street over there at Ontario Mazda. And I purposefully did it on the way there, the way that I would do it legally, which was walk all the way up the street to cross the light and all the way down the street to go there. I counted, I had an extra 3,000 steps to do that versus when I jaywalked across the street on the way back to go over there. And that's because there were no curb cuts, there were no shorter blocks, everything was pushed back from.
You're gonna get
the
that
road.
stuff.
The
though,
form-based
yeah.
code
You
doesn't address any of that.
so
It
have,
does,
it
actually.
You're not
does.
gonna have
Addresses
that.
shorter blocks.
You can't,
You're
that's a
not gonna
state
check.
road, you've gotta have the state's permission to go and make the road
How
cuts.
do we do road cuts on a state road? I'm asking.
Shorter blocks, like if you develop it.
But how does shorter block, I mean, I don't disagree with you to have shorter blocks, but how does that do with offsetting from the road? I mean, shorter blocks doesn't matter. I mean, if somebody that develops it might buy 2 blocks or whatever, if they were gonna put their business in there.
People are gonna drive anyway, they're not.
I'm not gonna spend like 50 minutes re-explaining
Mm-hmm.
urban planning. Cause I'm not the right person to do it, but
Mhm.
yes, shorter blocks matter when you're walking. It changes the way it feels when you're in a more condensed area. It wasn't just one person who said they didn't like the way it looked.
No,
It doesn't
I'm not
matter.
arguing with
Just throwing it out isn't going to help.
No,
What John had talked to me about, and I think he mentioned this to the whole town board in an email when we were discussing through email some of the upcoming, you know, discussions about what to change in form-based code is what Murphy said too, is instead of let's fix this, let's fix that, and for the next 6 months, we're sending something to the town board every month. Maybe an overhaul is more what we need to do. Address the most pressing and offensive parts of it, but not individually. Let's fix it. So
I would like to
Cynthia
try that
mentioned
first.
going to our comprehensive plan for someone who doesn't have the background. I really appreciate his effort to learn the development and economic side of it, but, and finding where form-based code is in conflict with our goals and vision for, you know, looking at our chapters on economic development and everything like that, and
But
make it match and then
Right.
fix the problems.
But I think part of looking at that is what are we doing to the development that's already there? Are we discouraging that with what we would
That's
propose?
what I was talking about with the thresholds.
Right,
Find maybe some more things for really threshold.
right.
Agreed. That's,
Well, when are we
If you
gonna
make the
have
threshold-
this whole package together so we can look?
In our lifetime.
I think they're
Yeah, we
looking
got
for
another
direction
14
from
months,
us.
so-
on the
Okay,
areas
so
that
we wanna
can
look
change.
at transparency.
Yes,
We wanna look at pre-existing properties that already have a building on them that are looking to
Threshold.
adapt and looking to change. What is that? Well, it triggers, now you must conform to all of form-based code. Chuck, are you seeing any? On the planning,
No, we have
are
to,
you seeing concerns that you guys are dealing with that we can clean up?
well, the issue of the car dealerships, it's the Honda dealer, we had a recent application on that. And through conversation back and forth in different meetings, we said, you sort of meet us halfway. And the way that thing was resolved, because the clock was ticking and, you know, we had to move on, we put a lot of landscaping and a lot of
Yeah.
into the parking lot, more than you normally see for parking. So a lot of trees, a lot of shrubs, and that was our give to them. So I think the form-based code was an implementation tool for the uptown study.
Mhm.
So maybe we gotta even go back to the Uptown study and see what that had sort of looked to see happen. And did the form-based code actually do that? And if it didn't, or how did it cause problems as you trying to implement the Uptown study? That's probably what you know.
But Chuck, can I ask a question about the car dealer? So
Mhm.
what was their ask that we met in the middle with trees and shrub?
Well, they wanted to be in the front yard.
Right.
Okay, and code doesn't allow it, so we said, hey, we sell cars. And we want the cars out front, we want to be able to have, potential buyers come, be able to walk and look at the car they're gonna buy.
Right.
And they have to walk all the way to the back of the lot, or, they gave very.
It's the drive-by thing too, they drive by.
Well, the driveway
car,
thing
yeah.
too, yeah,
Yeah.
so, and they had this lot, there's corner Emerson. and
Right.
332, and that's where they wanted to put this, display as well as overflow parking. So we, in granting that permission, said, okay, you can put the lot there, but you're certainly gonna
Right,
pretty it up,
so
and that's what we did.
one of my concerns is we're telling them how to do their business. That's what I fundamentally think. I think they have a recipe for selling cars, if we're talking about cars that works. Cause they're all the same. No matter where you go, car dealerships are all the same, right? If you go to Atlanta, Georgia, you're gonna drive by them, they're gonna look like they do on 332. So we're trying to get them to change. What?
Not necessarily, it's been a lot of
I'd say
change,
it's the opposite.
so.
It's the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, Kitty Van Bortle is the prime example of all of her new car dealerships are a single row of cars up front with the rest in the rear. And they do everything inside now. Because they don't need to have
They don't
a
need to
stock
display.
500 cars.
Mhm.
They need one for each model, each trim. And then, okay, if you want it, we'll have it shipped.
Yeah, we asked the Honda dealer, Jim Belka, the facility manager, and he said, people still want to see the car they're buying. I mean, the concept of buying cars online. I mean, it's becoming more popular, but it's still, when it comes to the customer, they want to be able to come to the dealership and go look at the car. And a lot of times they can sell you a car that's got more perks and bells and whistles than what you really need, but they're gonna buy it because they're in it, they've driven it, and they're.
But to go with that, he also had 3 different options if we didn't allow. He came to us with, okay, well, we can build parking back here. Well, we can do off-site parking. We don't want to, but we can. To say that we tied their hands.
Yo, I'm not-
I would say, just like anywhere else, they're gonna push. McDonald's is always gonna push for the bright yellow arches. But if you go all around the country, you're gonna see very few of those nowadays. Because they can't. Popeyes wanted a monopole sign. We said no, okay, they didn't give a monopole sign. It's just zoning in general for us to say, yeah, you can't do that, but you can do this. So it's a give and a take. I think the biggest point of view with the form-based code and John's perspective is that you wanted to drive development. Well, instead of driving development, it tied its hands with the process,
Mhm.
and the process for form-based code, staff, we can barely even figure it out 90% of the time.
And-
let alone develop.
Yeah, there is nothing in this form-based code that talks about the size of blocks. And I would challenge you to say that you're gonna go and make any developer build a street that's gonna go and change the size of the blocks.
Doing anything.
So I don't think that's a good argument to have form-based code, but I think what Mike just summarized is right on the mark. We are tying developers' hands by telling them that they have to meet this form-based code, and it's very, very difficult. I've been interpreting code now as long as anybody's sitting here at this table. And I gotta tell you, to interpret this form-based code is extremely difficult.
So I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not saying that form-based code is extremely different. I'm saying the process that we've built in form-based code. I mean,
Tying their hands.
This committee came to staff and asked us to figure out a way to not have single family homes in site plan review, because we want to make it more expedited. We want to drive development. That was the whole point of form-based code, drive development in the uptown area.
But it's not.
But now you have to go to town board, you have to go to planning board, you have to go to zoning board, you have to go to staff, instead of just bing,
There
bang.
it is.
boom, boom,
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's the content in form-based code too, that's a problem. It's not.
And
the
I agree
process
with you,
completely.
but the
It's
fact of
both.
having setbacks, that's not a new thing. Setbacks have always been a thing. The parking in front of structures versus in the rear isn't gonna change a developer. LaFroyce and I had a very long conversation about Garber Cadillac because they wanna do a new building in front. And once we sat down, I was like, no, do it this way. They're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, but it's completely backwards to what we think.
So, I just
So,
have a question. With this, when it was created, and the idea of it, was it because, you know, the point to the hodgepodge of it, you know, or to develop the ones, the lots that aren't developed, then to have those existing ones that are gonna be there forever. So was the point of the form-based code to get that corridor to look like, the town wanna look like in the next 10 to 15 years, or the next 50 to 75 years? I guess is really the main point of it, because the side of it's a short-term solution or a long-term solution, as far as what that area wants to look like, because you're right, I don't think like those dealerships that are there, they're probably not rebuilding their building anytime in the next 50 years.
I don't think that was ever part of the discussion, that in 10 years we want to be here. It's
So-
30% conversion, you know, there is no
Well, so I
time, you know,
think in
table laid
determining
out like that.
what you want to accomplish in that area with the form-based code, or how it needs to change, or how, you know, something else needs to come in, whatever you guys might decide, is the time frame of it, because that, how it is now, I mean, you're gonna get the hodgepodge until probably, I would say 50 to 75 years from now, where eventually when those buildings start getting rebuilt, or they start expanding, or whatever they need to do, that's.
Well, it wasn't intending to put any restrictions on existing businesses. It was intending when someone is ready to make a massive change to their property, we wanted to look more attractive and more friendly to our community, and be more accessible and work better in an integrated community with accessibility and making our entire community better looking at the entrance to the community. It was never intended to be attacking an existing business and say, nope, sorry, you can't do anything you want to do, because you have to be exactly perfect right now. So that was never the intent of it. It was always intended, okay, new things coming in, we want you to look more like this, how we should have always had it in the beginning, not requiring them to be whatever it was, 120 feet back from the road, which is the strangest code suggestion ever. But it was intended to do a slow improve of the area and to encourage businesses to come there. Now, yes, we, like you said, the process, there are definite problems with that. With the transparency, definite problems with that. We probably set that threshold way too low. There's a huge problem with that as well. So let's fix the process. Let's fix those issues, give it a try, and see if that's helpful to it.
So
And I don't think we can base how many businesses have tried to build something in the area from 2020 to 2024 on, you know, the success of the form-based code, because we've had the highest interest rates we've ever had in that period, not ever, but recent interest rates we've ever had, and a massive worldwide pandemic. So it's not really an area where we can evaluate the efficacy of the form-based code in the last 4 years.
I would add to that the conversation that we really haven't had around form-based code. And that is that we need to encourage economic development along Route 332 as quick as we can, because it is the only way we can go and encourage more revenue to come to this town, so that we can keep our taxpayers' property taxes down low. And we need to encourage development here.
We used to have an economic development committee that did that.
That economic development committee didn't meet as long as I've been on the board, and never has been.
So
And we got an LDC now that's supposed to be doing that for us. And we need to go and get all of our economic development efforts all sitting around the table in the same room at the same time. It's got to be the county, it's got to be the city, it's got to be Chamber of Commerce, it's got to be the town, it's got to be the Ontario County Visitor Center, it's got to be the bid from downtown Canandaigua. All those people need to be sitting around that table at the same time and talking about how we're encouraging economic development here. And we all need to be talking about how we're doing our part, what part we are playing in that role.
So one of our parts could be to look at, we can obviously agree on that something needs to be done with form-based code. I mean, we can all agree on that. What it is still remains to be seen, but it sounds to me like we need to look at the process. The threshold for development and transparency. So how do we do that?
The threshold for development and transparency should be fairly simple. We can just, those two issues are not.
I got an idea.
So,
Why don't we go back to what we had before we had form-based code and modify that as opposed to taking this and trying to modify it? Because this is almost incomprehensible. You got your town planner telling you that as well.
I
So-
didn't say it was incompetent.
Well, you said it's very difficult to interpret the code. Well, the same thing. So I say, why not go from where we were and modify that as opposed to trying to take this and modify it to.
let me
Make a
remind you, we
difference.
won a state award for being a leader
Okay,
in
great.
changing how our code system works.
That's great.
Form-based code.
So we won a bureaucratic award.
Don't, please don't elevate it to an angry conversation.
It's not, I'm not angry. I'm just being emphatic about it. I'm just saying, hey, you can go whisper all you want, but the bottom line is a bureaucracy gave us an award on this. They're not helping us with economic development here in Canada.
We're being a leader in how you do code statewide. It's a change, and I think it's a positive change. Sarah, you were trying to say something.
I don't know that, there are a lot of communities clamoring to do this. I really don't. I don't
Because
think
it's
there
new,
are.
And it's.
Well, it's not
that's
new.
the way of
It's
doing
new.
things.
It's not new. They use this all over the country.
You know, I don't know how, I don't know the numbers, so.
I
I
think
can't
downtown
comment right
Rochester
now.
uses it, the area around Highland, about University of Rochester.
Right.
They use it if you're starting with scratch, or, yeah, or if you're trying to rebuild an urban area
Well, that's
with a
what I
blank
said earlier.
canvas.
You got a blank canvas, it's good.
Exactly.
Use it there. I mean, one of the big drivers was mixed use development, so that you could have a car dealership with apartments above it if you wanted to, you know, you could, that was one of the big claims to fame for this, that we could, as long as the structures look the same, we didn't really care what was going on.
Yeah, and that was,
That was a real big push for it, but,
and I do want to add
you know,
to Murph's comment, to our comment about process. We were very clear that we wanted town board oversight. That's one thing that we kept in there over the process, because looking back at it, I was afraid of some of the impacts and things that would come down. I know others were too. And so that was something that was included in there to have the town board oversight of it. So that way we'd at least have. And the selling point was, and I remember specifically, the selling point was, well, you adopt form-based code, you actually have more control to make sure things stay the way they should, rather than less control because you have oversight. Maybe that's created an issue, I don't know, but I support fully reviewing it and looking at it. Because of the same concerns.
I mean, I
So many
agree with you. I think we need to review it, and I don't rule out that we start over. I mean, I'd like to not do that, but I mean, it sounds like there are a number of problems with it that we're not addressing here. You know what I mean, from that standpoint. But
and the
there's-
question is, how do you get to that list and what we do about it? Because you guys are saturated already
Right.
with work, and I mean, it's not. It's just piling more on you.
Right.
To do that, that's.
One of the questions, talking about, and I keep saying this, just keep saying it. When you're talking about the thresholds, it's exactly what John brought up, is there was a time frame in mind. How fast do you want to see these changes, bringing buildings forward and whatnot in that part of town? That's where the thresholds were set, with the idea that there wasn't like it's gonna look like this in 20 years, but infill could happen. If someone wants to allow another company to come and build a building in their lot, maybe not, car dealership wouldn't want that, but Randy's Collision Center with the giant parking lot that's vacant, he had discussed that the benefit would be if he wanted to bring something else in, he just could now. And then the other code didn't allow it, things like that. I think they were thinking that could happen within 15, 20 years of implementing form-based code. None of this is gonna happen in 5 years because people don't rebuild their buildings every 5 years, I mean, those are slower changes, but with these thresholds, if you loosen them, you're pushing it down the road. And if that's what the town board wants, fine. But if you don't have that answer, you need that answer before you can decide what the threshold should be. Cause what you change in the code will reflect in less change in that part of town.
We could sit here and talk about this until.
So,
Right.
Hours all later
Go
this
to the
evening.
town board meeting on Monday.
But without direction,
Yeah,
So-
and I guess the thing to always go back to, the comprehensive plan that says that that part of the town is the development part, right? That's where town wants development to occur. And I think that, you know, again, I have been here when this occurred, but I think that was thought to be the solution to then drive that development. As per the comprehensive plan. So I guess there is that direction that's needed is what time frame are we looking at that development to occur? And after this has been in place for a few years, if that's not what's working, then obviously it needs to be changed, but probably then when making these decisions, I know I mentioned it before, there's got to try to be some sort of task force to include developers of the area to have that knowledge of why has this kind of stymied development rather than created it, like.
I don't think that it has. That's what I was trying to say earlier. I think that the lending climate as well as the uncertain health climate has affected development more than anything that form-based code has
Well,
done positively or negatively.
And I think that's what those people can tell us too, is it, well, you know, were you not developing because of those reasons, or, you know, is there anything here that changed that can get this, the more immediate, shorter term range that I think the town's looking for.
Well,
rather
and
than
you
throwing
use the
out
word
numbers.
drive development. I think, do we want to drive development or do we want to encourage development? Those are two different things, I think. So I'm not sure form-based code is encouraging development, but it's definitely trying to drive development, which we've seen very little. So, I mean, that's where we get stuck.
The one very big positive that I see in form-based code and being saying how restrictive it is the wrong way of putting it, but the requirements that it has is that you're gonna get people that really want to be here, right? For me, in my perspective, the biggest driver of how a community is doing is driving down the main street and seeing how many vacant storefronts there are. Example A is drive from Route 96 in Farmington all the way to Pittsburgh and keep count of how many Victor locations are empty. Right? There's a lot of them.
Mhm.
East Two Mall has several vacant storefronts. Town of Canandaigua, we've got four vacant storefronts the whole time. I'd rather see people come in that want to be here. That's just my 5 cents. But that's kind of the problem, is you don't have these people coming in to knock everything down. You just want to have them come in and build if they actually want to be here. We saw Sierra go into the vacant storefront, that was great. We saw Popeyes go in and build their building down there, that's great. If you want to build outside of form-based code, we have an area. But if you want to build in form-based code, you go up there.
Well, the biggest development that has hit our town in terms of residential is this quick development. And we have to use incentive zoning in order to make that happen, so.
With form-based code.
I think that
form-based
ended
code.
up being a positive for everyone involved. I think, I mean,
Yeah,
Sarah and
but
I
we
had a
wouldn't have had to
conversation
do
about
that
this.
if we didn't have, you know,
I think
I was
using-
part of
having to
the
use
process
incentive
too,
zoning
but
works.
I just have my doubts about it. Just,
So,
I mean,
I think it
there's
gets
so
back
many
to,
problems with it.
form-based code needs to be looked at some way, shape, form, matter. What does that look like? Because we go around the table, we go around the table. So is this committee gonna do it? Are we gonna come up with something? How do we do that?
I mean, we can come up with a separate group, like John had talked about, and just pull in
A developer?
and pull in people. I know Blue Shirt John, I know we can pull in some of the connections and contacts you have. We brought in, we had meetings with, with Iverson, with Bragg, with a bunch of those guys. I'm sure there are others that we can get in on that steering group and look and see what we're doing. Is it helping or is it not? But I don't want to create another committee to just have one.
Just let me comment on that.
Yeah.
Your idea of bringing other developers in. My experience has been that the developers don't want to participate in that type of conversation because they don't want to be singled out.
Right, okay.
You know, I think it was very, it was great that we were able to get the three that we got in to talk to the LDC. But even they were very guarded in what they said and tried to be very politically correct about what they said. And that's the reason why they don't
Right.
want to be singled out and say, well, geez, this guy's a bad guy or that's a good guy. You know, it's a fine line that they walk.
Right.
But they need to voice their opinion.
So
Is the
it's-
town, is the town a good place to develop? I mean, I get where they don't wanna say that in front of everybody else, but at some time, there has to be a safe spot for them to say, hey, you guys are terrible at development, or you guys are good at development, you know what I mean? Unless we hear that, how do we know?
It's gotta be those individuals.
Last time I shared with what I've been hearing, I got slammed. So, take it for what it's worth.
I mean, maybe Cook could come in, he's got a current
He's not gonna
experience with
come in.
us.
Yeah, I
I've
think,
already asked him. He's not gonna.
and I think people, yeah, and I get it. I mean, you don't wanna come in and drop problems on
And
the.
say this is a terrible place to
It's
develop.
horrible, and then come back and say, hey, here's my application, can you review it?
No,
That, that does not, that's
you're putting them on the spot.
right, and that, you're right, and I agree with that.
So, but we still need some committee to look at this.
Yeah, so we'll,
What about, I mean, I guess they don't necessarily need to be people from this area. I mean,
Yeah.
some developers that, do this all over the state, the country. That come in and look at your development plan and economic development. And I mean, they don't have a stake in the community, but they're the experts in it and that can kind of have a pulse on it. I mean,
I just,
there's that option.
I just want to remind everybody that when this was developed, we had about 40 different developers that were part of the process. Randy Farnsworth was on the committee that helped to develop this as well. So I think maybe we could also just simply look back at some of the notes from the Economic Development Committee that ended with the creation of the LDC in 2020.
Maybe you get that same group of people together and see what their opinion is now.
That's
Now
what I
that
was
it
just thinking, the
looks-
exact same thing.
Down
It's
to the
like,
book that you say, here's what do you think of it? Because
Yeah,
not singling Randy out, but I don't know that he's a big fan of it right now.
I'm
and I
pretty
think,
sure he's not.
and I think a lot of those people, yeah, I 100%
Pretty
agree
sure
on
he's
that one.
not.
And those people, they might look back and they say, well, this isn't where they're
This is what
surprised.
we're thinking.
Right, I mean, we can't be afraid to go back and look and review things and say, you know what, yeah, we went through and we did it, but it's not set in stone, these aren't 10 tablets. That's our job, is to look back and review these things and make sure, did this meet its goals, not say, well, we did it. We had a group that did it, we had people going through and giving input, and this is what we created, so we have to live with it. It's okay to look back and say, you know what, we tried it, there are a couple things we liked, we swung and missed on a bunch of other things, that's okay. So let's try to clean it up.
We could also re-engage Bergman in the process.
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't us that really led the thing. It was.
It was
what's her name?
As a consultant,
Kimberly.
and that's where I come back to John's comment. And I mean, sometimes.
It's okay, you can agree with me once in a while, Jared.
All right, I go, John, but sometimes people come in and they sell us things. This is a cool new thing. This
So we
is a
just need
cool
to
new
revisit
trend.
that.
We
and
need
see
to review
what-
it.
But the concept looked right. How is the implementation going?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what we need to look at. Is
Mhm.
it working? Is it not working? What's working? What's not
Mhm.
working?
I think the concept is still correct. It's just too restrictive. I think there are some serious positives about changing the zoning for form-based code. I think we just have process issues that are problematic. I think this happened to hit a really difficult time.
So,
Entire economic development world.
so what we need to do is form this
It
committee.
needs to
So
be adjusted.
you wanna, I mean, who's interested in,
We'll talk,
I am.
all right,
so we'll talk and we'll get.
get some
this
people
going.
together, yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe we pay Bergman to come in. to-
I mean, I don't,
Well, they're gonna tell you.
yeah, let's,
That's the
they're
other
gonna-
side.
I-
They created.
You guys, it was based on choices. Yes, they showed you the pictures that you picked from,
Exactly.
but it was still the group that said, we like that one. And the code was built around the choices made by that community. So
Which was a large.
I gotta, what are you willing to give up from those choices that were made Because that's what, you gotta get, if you wanna make the code easier for everybody, you're giving up something that you chose when you picked the pieces of the form-based code. Longer time for it to change the way it looks in Uptown. There were concerns about what kind of materials people use, like, we don't want you putting corrugated metal buildings up there. Before, that wasn't a restriction. Form-based code, you can't do that, so if we lessen or reduce the requirements with the materials requirement, you might get some looks that you don't like. And we didn't say that building has to be this shape or that shape, like the one at Canandaigua Crossings, that was their idea. Transparency, yes, but like how it looks, the code doesn't say that, but what
But we
do
can
you need to
choose
step
that,
back
but,
from?
right, but I think we need
But
to
you
look
gotta
at that
find out.
once again, I mean, because I mean, no one's gonna
That's
argue
all I
that
was trying to
development's
get
gone
to
up.
is that for Murphy and me and whoever to just propose some changes is probably not what we want to
Right.
do. You, as a board, have to decide what you want to change for us to give you something to vote on,
Right.
I don't think there's any doubt that when this was created, everybody did it thinking it was the best thing and the best way forward and to accomplish the goals. But just like any plan, I mean, once.
I voted against it, I'll just say.
Well, I mean,
You don't-
you're
you don't
the
know how
only
it
ones
works.
who are on the board at the time that it's not.
Okay,
You don't know how Hamilton is gonna work until it's implemented.
Exactly, and it's
not-
okay to look better.
So let's agree to forming a committee to look at it, because there's almost uniformly, there's a few things we need to change without any question. So we look at that and we look at other things as well, so.
Well, question, if you want to do all this in one big, here's the changes. Should we, since there's a question about form-based code, but there's also little niggly things that could be fixed very quickly. Do we just do those,
Yeah, I think the two.
just
big pieces
suggest
to do.
those, get them written up?
Is that a legal
signed?
word?
Maybe.
Is that a legal term?
Yeah.
I think
well,
the other
well, he's
one
not up
issue-
there anymore.
One issue that we might have too is these people who are in active development right now. It's getting their plans done, so what do we do about them? If they're trying to do their best, this dealership to comply with current form-based codes, and then we change everything after they spend all their money drawing up the plans.
I don't think it would impact the brand new development.
Okay.
No, I think that, I
Well,
think
time
the
plus
two.
now, so
I
that,
just wanna make sure that we're thinking about that too.
We're not leaving them
That some,
hanging,
yeah,
right,
that somebody's there currently developing something and then we change a whole bunch of stuff. And then they look back and like, man, that could have saved us a whole bunch of money if we didn't have to do that.
It's
I
not gonna
usually
help our
tell
reputation.
people when
No.
we have pending code changes, if
But-
I think the pending code
But I
changes
don't-
have something to do with their.
I don't think he can
They
avoid
will
that.
change.
No.
No, you can't, I
And I think,
I don't know.
I
just wanna
agree with
make
Cherry, I think there's two things we all
And
agree
actually,
on
people
at this
know.
point, which is transparency and the threshold levels. I think we can adjust those two things now while we make further changes. So,
I don't know if that helps you guys, but
Don't-
you can't,
It's the process.
yeah.
this is a larger issue.
You gotta figure out.
So what we have to do is,
And that's gotta be.
we gotta get a subset of people to look at this and propose stuff from there, so, cause we're just gonna keep going around and around on the same thing, so.
And you still have to decide if
This is
you
not-
would.
I don't think it's.
That's my point, is
Yeah.
why we keep going around.
Right,
We
I'm
don't-
trying to stop going around. So the next meeting is November 4th at 9 o'clock. Even though the agenda says November 3rd. So maybe a motion to adjourn, and we're gonna form that committee.
We'll move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
maybe two.